global, affecting women from everywhere.
All right, hello everybody. We are back with another PPCM Chat with Heart Sister Ebony here to tell us about her heart journey and how she just survived a 1 year heart anniversary with a new heart. Like, this is big. So tune in, listen to our heart sis, and hopefully get some encouragement, inspiration, and motivation. All right, Miss Ebony, tell us your story.
Hello, I am Ebony Smith Thomas. I was diagnosed with PPCM in May of 2016. I had my son March 23rd, 2016. I went out of town to one of my little cousin's graduation. And after the graduation, we went back to the house and, partied and all of that, celebrating him. And at nightfall, I got sick. And I had like this dry cough that was keeping me up. Every time I coughed so hard, I woke my baby up. And my oldest son, he said, Mom, I think you need to wake somebody else up because you're keeping him up. And I had to get ready to drive the next day back home from Kansas to Missouri, about a 4-hour drive. And so it was just really bad to the point where I was throwing up after every time coughing, going to the bathroom constantly because of the coughing. And so when I got back home, I was fine during the day. But every time nightfall came, it was the same thing over and over. And I called my OBGYN and asked her, I'm breastfeeding. What do you think I need to do, for this summer cold I believe that I have? She told me and prescribed me some meds as well. Of course, that didn't work. So my AC went out at my home. So I had to pack up the kids and we came over to my mom's house. And my mom was like, Ebony, you coughed all night. And the way that you was coughing, something should have been coming up. There's no such thing as walking pneumonia, and people pass from walking pneumonia. And so she was like, I really need you to go to urgent care or the emergency room. And so I went to urgent care and they said that I had pneumonia all over my chest and there was really nothing they could do for me. And so I went and got a CT as well because, most moms have blood clots after having, a child. So they checked that I didn't have any blood clots. And I vaguely remember them saying before leaving out that my heart was enlarged. I really didn't trip off of it because I know when you're pregnant, your heart is enlarged, but I had him in March. By May, my heart should have been down. But they didn't make a big deal about it, so I didn't make a big deal about it. And of course, this was urgent care. And they told me, usually you have to go to the hospital in an ambulance. And I was like, well, all my family is here. Can we just they drive me to the car? I promise I'm going to the hospital, the big hospital. And so we did that. When I got there, they did an EKG. They did all of the scans and studies over again, X-ray, everything, CT, because it's a totally different facility than urgent care. So while maybe an hour and a half after all of the X-rays and blood draws, a young lady came in with an ultrasound. And I'm just like, why are you in here with the ultrasound? Like, I don't need that. Like, I haven't done nothing. She was like, no, it's not to see if you're pregnant. I said, well, what is it for? She said, it's for your heart. I said, my heart? She said, yes. So she did the ultrasound. She showed me on the screen. She said, honey, if you didn't come in, you have a decreased squeeze in your heart. Your heart was going to eventually stop pumping. That's when I got alarmed. And so it was late. This was like 7 or 8-ish. So, all the attending doctors and things like that, they were already gone. So next day, Memorial Day, after them looking at the test of the echo, the x-rays and all of that, that's when I was diagnosed with PPCM. And my OBGYN came by and we talked, and she was just like, I can't believe this, because at my 6 weeks, everything checked out. And the problem with me is I have low blood pressure. So nothing, like, I just didn't have the signs that everybody had. But I guess at nightfall, those were the signs. And like hindsight now, I remember walking up all my steps with the baby after dropping the kids. I was saying like, "Ooh, I feel like I'm gonna pass out," and just did not pay attention to the signs. And everybody was saying before I went in, and my mom was like, "You need to go get checked out. You need to go get checked out." So it's like, I would tell any woman, pay attention to the signs that we push off because we're just pregnant or we just had a child, because those signs are the symptoms of PPCM. And I definitely would say one thing that I just wish that I knew was that it existed. I never heard in my life of PPCM until I was diagnosed with it. And they do have a little insert in what to expect when expecting, but if this is your second child or third child, you're not going to read the same book over. So unfortunately for me, I didn't read it. So I had no clue. So if there's anything that I would do is change that. Like, you see all the time about diabetes, preeclampsia, all of these things, or whatever, but you never hear about PPCM. You never hear about women having kidney problems from pregnancy. Like, and these are the things that are dominant in the African American community that's taking us away. So if I could do anything different, it's spreading the word and bringing awareness about it to the labor and delivery wards and the OBGYN offices. That's what I would like to do, to connect with the labor and delivery wards and connect with OBGYNs about creating a pamphlet, something that's eye-catching, because we know if things are not eye-catching, then people won't read it. So you need something that's going to be bold and have all of the symptoms so they know that this exists. Like, I know that's the only thing that I just wish that I knew that it existed. So forward from being diagnosed, I was seeing my cardiologist on a regular, and over the past 4.5 years, things just didn't turn in my favor, with the medicines that usually help us recover. But of course, you have to understand, I came in so late. I had my baby in March and I didn't get diagnosed until May. So that is crucial. The earlier of the diagnosis, the better chances of recovering. But also, they don't tell you after you have recovered, there are still lingering symptoms that you will have, and probably for the rest of your life. So it's kind of like with COVID. You beat COVID, but people still have lingering issues and symptoms because of COVID. So it's the same thing with PPCM. Your heart may have recovered, but you still have all of these different symptoms, and you could be symptomatic again from it. So just, that needs to be told, because I don't think a lot of people tell their patients that there are lingering symptoms. It's just like, oh, you're recovered. Well, that's not the case all the time. Your heart has recovered, but everything body-wise, inside-wise, has not recovered. Heck, your mental may have not recovered, because it's life-changing. It's very life-changing. And I think the two that need to go together with these different diagnoses is getting mental help. Like that needs to be something big in the community as well, is saying that you need to have somebody, because I remember when I first got diagnosed, I felt all alone. I felt alone, even though people knew that I was diagnosed and was trying to understand it. But sometimes they just don't get it. People don't get it when they're not in your shoes. So I definitely would say mental health is important when you're being diagnosed with things of your heart, your kidneys, just anything that's major, breast cancer, just all of that. You need to have the mental health, because I thank God that I had a counselor already and she was able to help me through. And then I had to see a psychiatrist as well. You have to get the help, because if you're not there mentally, you can't be no good to yourself, your children, just anybody around you. So with my cardiologist, she tried very hard and it just didn't work. So like 2017, she said, Ebony, we need to be retroactive than proactive, because as we see, your heart is just not doing well. The valves are just not doing well. So I need to introduce you to the transplant team. And I have to say, I call my cardiologist my saving grace, and the transplant doctor that I saw and they got me transplanted, he's my hero, because he took a chance on me. You know, it's a lot of us that pass and just don't make it to the mark of getting that transplant. So seeing him in 2017, they watch you closely. I definitely have to say it's just like a lot of scares that came, you know, from me having blood clots, me having a stomach virus called Hyper pylori from July up until September. I stayed hospitalized for something. Like I was in and out the hospital all the time up until transplant. And I never forget. So in July of 2019, one of the words that I never wanted to hear was, Ebony, we can't transplant you because you're too sick. If we put you on the table, you'll bleed out. And so that crushed me. That crushed my cousin. But unfortunately, sometimes you just don't hear the things that you want to hear. But a doctor has to tell you, you know, those things. It's their job, especially if you have a great doctor that's looking out for you and knowing what's best. And just that crushed me. That crushed me when I first heard it. And I had my moment where I was just down and sad about it. But then I said, let's change the narrative, Ebony. You go pray to God. I cried to God. My pillow caught a lot of my tears. And I just kept on praying. I'm like, God, you done brought me this far. Don't leave me. You know, I want to be here for my kids. I want to be here for my family. I want to be here for women that need to know about this ugly disease. I want to be here for my family, my support, just all of that. And the grace of God, I got sick again with fluid overload in October. And it was so bad. I was just expecting to go on there to get the fluid taken off of me, but things had changed. So they ended up keeping me, and I had to get a Millerone bag put on me. And I had that on from October all the way up to August. And I was in ICU for a while because of it. And things changed. I had to be at my mom's house, bring my family over here because I had the Millerone bag. They want someone around you 24 hours, and you have to change it. You have to be very, very clean to have this bag on you. I could not bathe. There was another life altering, you know, change that you not expecting, but I was just blessed that I was able to get it and still be here. I got that in October of 2019. I got listed for heart transplant, and COVID happened. COVID happened, and when you have the Millerone bag, you're supposed to go every 3 months to get a right calf. That's basically to check your numbers, your output, your valves, and all of that. And I was able to go that January. That February, that's when COVID happened. So I took my son out of daycare before the team even said to, because I just couldn't risk it, because I needed this transplant, because I knew my heart was just not going to last. My oldest son, I had to take him out and had to have a long talk with him, because we had been paying for 2 years for him to go on a trip to Germany, and the school hadn't called it yet if they were going to go or not. But I told him, I said, son, I can't risk, you not getting back in the country. So we're gonna have to just cancel it. I made the insurance payment, but unfortunately, it's still some money that is taken away from you, even with the insurance. But I just told him I couldn't risk you being over there and not knowing when you're coming back. Like I couldn't live with that. So I told him that we were gonna have to cancel that, and he was really looking forward to it because he worked hard for it. And unfortunately, they canceled the trip to school or whatever. And we were in a house because of the pandemic. And we didn't allow anybody to come over here because I needed to get this heart transplant, right? So I missed the next appointment that was 3 months from January, because the pandemic, they stopped a lot of surgeries that was not necessarily needed and having people come to the hospital. But I could tell that something had shifted. I didn't know if it was because it's hot outside and me wearing a mask, because I started wearing a mask back in October when he first told me about how very clean you needed to be when it came to the Millerone bag and all of that. And he was like, being out, like, you don't need to catch nothing because that will mess up, your chances of getting transplanted and things of that nature. So I just didn't know what it was like. At first, I was feeling so powered up and had energy, because that's what they call the Millerone bag, jet fuel. And then all of a sudden, it was just like getting hard, getting rough, like walking and with the mask. And so I just didn't know if the heart was just, and the output was getting worse, or if it was just me wearing a mask and this being new. So they called me, and this was July. She called me on a Friday. No, it was on a Monday. She called me on a Monday, and she said, it's time to have right calf. I said, right calf? They letting us do that again? She was like, yes. I said, what day am I coming in? She said, Friday. I said, Friday? I'm like, oh Lord, okay. She was like, but this time you need to plan to stay. I'm like, oh, okay. It just sounded different this time, because I've been told that before, plan to stay, right? And it just wasn't time. So this time I could just feel that it was just so much different. So what did I do? Got on it. Start editing my will, start editing my power of attorney. Had quality time with each kid, because I also have both of my nieces as well. Then we did stuff as a family, and it was just all about us that week, just being together and all of that, because of course we don't know how long I would be there waiting on a heart, because I had some things against me. I'm tall, I'm a bigger woman, I had antibodies because I have kids. So we knew that I would probably be in there a very long time, because that's what the team have always said since we started talking transplant. So got all of that together. She was like, well, the OR is full. You have until Monday. So I had basically a week. And that week, I just basically got everything together, made sure they had beneficiary, paperwork, had my will, my power of attorneys, and all of that together, spending time with my mom, my dad, my kids, just doing all of that. And unfortunately, I couldn't get together with my friends because I just wanted to take that time to be with my kids. I went in on July 27th, and things did take a change for the worse. And so I stayed in a hospital. And I was in ICU from July 27th until August the 19th. And they had to put a balloon pump in the following Friday. That changed my status and got me up to a status 2. And as long as you have a balloon pump in, I believe it's every 2 weeks, you have to get a right calf. And so I had to get another right calf. They looked at things were stable. But I got the call August 18th. I got the call, but actually they gave me the call later that night. But during the day, I couldn't say anything to anybody because my cousin and my mom was like, "You don't want to jinx this. Don't say nothing until you know for certain." But they all came into the room. It was just different on that day. Like I met I met my transplant surgeon doctor and his nurse, and then like all of my nurses that was working on the floor, they had to come in to get blood work. They had to come in to do paperwork. They had to come in to do all of these different things. It was a day full of a lot of things that needed to be done, that needed to be taking place. And a lot of conversations had to be had about like what can happen if, with transplant. Like there is a thing that you could become diabetic, you could become a person that needs a trait, and sometimes the trait has to stay in for life and sometimes it does not. It just all depends. Like all of these different things that they talk to you about, your chances of getting cancer is much higher, with heart transplant. Skin cancer is a really big thing. So they're going over all of these things with you, discussing them about what can happen after transplant or what can happen during surgery. So that was a day full of just taking everything in and understanding everything. And so they said, well, now on the donor, it's a 6-hour test that has to be passed for the donor. And so we'll let you know if it's a go. So, of course, I got that phone call. It was 8-ish on the 18th. Everything was a go. I was getting transplanted the very next day. And the time that they gave me at first was 2:45. And so what happened with that on the 19th, someone was late picking up one of their organs. So they had to push my surgery back to 4:45. And, the heart is the last thing to go because the heart keeps everything viable, right? So it got pushed back to 4:45. I got up that day, did my victory laps around the ward, talked with my mom. I got my original heartbeat for my boys because of course my native heart is being taken out. I recorded videos for my family, my children, wrote letters, did FaceTimes with everybody, because you just don't know what's on the other end, what's the outcome going to be. But I wasn't nervous at all. I think the reason why I wasn't nervous is because I knew that my native heart was done for. It wasn't going to last much longer. So I was excited. And my friend just said on Sunday, she said, I'm sitting up here crying my eyes out, and Ebony up here doing duck lips and peace signs. She was like, who is this excited going into open heart surgery, getting a transplant? I said, me, because I just knew, like, on the other end of it, if I just allowed and said, no, I don't want a heart transplant, I wouldn't be right here today talking to you, Brianna, and everyone else. So I went in. I really don't know much. I see now, a year later, from messages on Facebook of updating everybody, that my cousin Chantel, more like a big sister, was keeping everybody updated. But I know I went in on the 19th. I did not wake up until the 21st of August, and they did not close me up until 3 p.m. on the 20th. Because they put another balloon pump in, but they couldn't put it in my shoulder. They had to put it in my groin. But I woke up on the 21st of August, and I made it. We made it. That was the first thing I said. I could barely hear myself because of having the things in my mouth or whatever. But I said I made it. You know, that's like, I guess my slogan now is that through everything, I keep on making it. It was different. My chest didn't hurt. And I know that sounds crazy. You have open heart surgery and get a transplant. I didn't have pain from the transplant or anything. Everything was going smooth sailing. 6 days after transplant, I got up for the first time walking. Now that was different. That was really different. Trying to learn how to walk again. And I'm like, I was only down for so-and-so days. They was like, yeah, you have to learn how to do everything again. I'm like, so I'm relearning everything like a baby. I had to learn how to swallow again. I had to learn how to talk again. I had to learn how to write again. I had to learn how to change my clothes again. Like, I literally had to learn how to do everything all over. That was different. Like, I wasn't expecting it. There's something that wasn't talked about. And maybe it's a good thing that it's not talked about, because if you heard that, I think that could steer people away from, like, nah, I don't want to get transplanted. Once you're in a situation, it's either you go sink or swim, right? And I'm swimming to shore always. So I had to learn how to do everything all over again. I think one of the hardest things for me was learning how to swallow again, because of having a trach in, everything seemed like it got stuck right here, and the pills are big. And I think I would never, ever eat applesauce ever again, because they had to feed you all of them pills through applesauce. So, I moved out of ICCU, went down to the step down floor. That's ICU, the 6th floor. That became my family because I was there so long. It was nothing but physical therapy, occupational therapy every day. The first week I had my biopsy, everybody in the cath lab was like, wait a minute, you woke for your first biopsy? And I'm looking at them crazy like, And they looking at me crazy because they're used to me in the cath lab. But I'm like, what's wrong? Like, this not normal. They like, no, people are still highly sedated. They're not woke on their first biopsy. I'm like, what?
Oh, God.
I'm like, no wonder, y'all all looking at me crazy because I'm like, okay, y'all know me very well, but they was like, no, people are not woke. So they let me know that I'm blessed.
Oh, definitely. Oh.
Yeah, so did the biopsy. Unfortunately, I was in rejection, high rejection. So that means more steroids. The steroids. If I could change that, we don't have to get steroids. I swear I would change that for any transplant patient. So they had to do that. I had to get that for I want to say 4 days. Then they did the biopsy again after that. Everything came back great, but biopsies are through a grade level from 0 to 3 to 4, and 3 to 4 mean like you're like knocking on death's door. And that's where I was on the first week. Now I didn't feel like that, but the numbers showed that. So that was a blessing in itself that everything got fixed. I haven't been in rejection no more from that. So after doing all of the occupational therapy, I was planning to go home on that Thursday. My occupational therapist and my physical therapist was like, so we doing the steps. You got to do 2 sets of steps. And that was hard. Steps were hard, especially learning to walk again. I'm like, okay. They say every step that you take, you're closer to home. Wow. I'm like, okay. So I did the steps. I conquered them, going up and down them. And that night, probably about 10-ish, the surgeon came in. He said, hey, best friend, I got something to tell you. I said, what? He said, you got a blood clot, a lethal blood clot that's growing rapidly, that's not, taking the blood thinners. It's steady growing. And I reached out to 3 of the top surgeons, and they told me we had to have surgery again. And I said, oh. He said, yes, one of the doctors said they had a patient with the same thing. They did not take the blood clot out, and the blood clot traveled to her head, her brain, and she passed away. He said, we can't do that for you, best friend. So 5:30, down in the OR. I'm like, okay, Dr. Masood, that's fine. I guess I was kind of cocky because the first time I didn't hurt, like, it's fine. I got this, right? Because I did it before.
Yeah.
Well, the thing of it is, it was just 23 days ago. Mm-hmm. So the chest wasn't even healed. And I didn't know what to expect the next go round because I'm just thinking everything went so smoothly the first time, but no. They did the surgery, and I'm like, Dr. Masood, I don't want to go back up to ICCU. I said, that's jail. They watch everything you do. He said, your bid won't be long. I said, you promise? I don't want to be up there long because they watch everything. You can't do nothing. You can't sit up in ICCU. They don't allow you to do that. I'm like, I don't want to lay in the bed all day. They was like, no, that's not how ICCU go. I'm like, okay. So he did it. He was able to remove the large blood clot that was in my chest that grew rapidly. I woke up and I'm like, did y'all change my body? Why am I feeling pain? Like, this is different. Like, I didn't feel this first surgery. They was like, because your chest was still very sensitive, sore because it haven't even been 30 days. I'm like, oh, okay. Having second surgery did a number on my body. I went in kidney failure. They was thinking that they were going to have to do dialysis, but they pulled every medicine that attacked the kidneys off. And they helped my creatinine and bun go back up to the regular level that it needed to be, but it was still very elevated. It's still elevated to this day. I had so much fluid on me. I had fluid issues with PPCM, but it was always just in my belly. This time it was in my ankles, my legs, just everything. Like that surgery did a number on my body. And it's just been taking my body a very long time to adjust to having this second surgery, still to this day. So I had the second surgery on 9/11/20. I had to do physical therapy. I had to do occupational therapy all over again. I'm back to the baby stage again, learning to walk, learning to talk, learning how to do everything all over again, what I had just did in August up until September the 10th. So I did all of those things. I was still having the fluid issues. Finally, we get to October the 2nd. I was released to come home. That was a great day because I got to surprise my baby, the youngest that hadn't saw me in person in forever since July 27th. It was a blessing to just be able to be out and be home. I had a lot of issues when I came home. A lot of things that don't be talked about, and I get it why they don't say it, because I think it's one of them things. That's why they say to you every little single thing, you let them know about it, because they need to know, because everybody else have their own issues or deal, have different things. But I just kind of wish I knew some of them. But it's been a roller coaster ride. I have been hospitalized 2 times. The very last time, I would say that probably was the most scariest. From March up until July, I was having episodes of falling out. They couldn't understand why they thought that, the prednisone, because I was on that for basically almost a year. They thought it was the muscles, the long leg muscles and the long arm muscles. So they thought it was that. And I had started working out, doing aquasides and all of that. And we just couldn't figure out why. But the very last time, July the 3rd, I had a really, really bad episode to where I blacked out, bust my lip. I was like having convulsions and all of that. So they pulled me in a hospital, did neuro observation and everything. And they figured out that I wasn't holding enough sodium and fluid. So they got a prescription that's been helping. Things have been better. Still have GI issues from the medicine. But I'm just one of them people that I'm going to always find a silver lining in everything. I tell people all the time, dig deep. Even in a negative situation, there's always a positive. And sometimes you got to dig really, really deep to find that positive. But I'm going to always push through no matter what. One thing about me, when it's all said and done, everybody is going to say, Ebony kicked heart failure, you know what? It didn't kick my butt. So I'm going to always just persevere and push through, because I got some little ones that's dependent on me. And I got a community that's going to depend on me as well, because we got to get the word out here about what is taking over the African-American community, but also for everyone else. But that's what's really near and dear to my heart, that we losing people rapidly. because of heart failure. And it's just crazy that this is the number one silent killer, but you always hear a lot about cancer, and there's not a lot of associations or things that help heart patients. You know, I want to be able to have a non-for-profit organization to where I can actually help in a community. If it means you diagnosed with PPCM and you need a recliner because you probably sleep better in a recliner than in your bed because of the fluid overload. Um, just with bills, with school clothes, I know because I've been there. I needed the help. So I just would like to be able to do that for our community. So I really need to get ready and start working on that year two. Hopefully we're over the bumps in the roads of after transplant. I really want to write a book, Life After Transplants, about a lot of the things that are not discussed before transplant. Like and I think too, in my mind, I look back and I realized that I was so sick. The main thing I was just focusing on, let's get to transplant. So pre-transplant, you talk all about what's going to happen up into transplant and all of that, but we're not discussing what's happening after transplant. So that's what I want to do, is to just make people knowledgeable about life after transplant, because I think a lot of things people think transplant is a cure. If it was a cure, we wouldn't have to take all of that medicine. I get this a lot. Do you ever put it in the back of your mind about not going into rejection? No, it's going to always be in the forefront of my mind because this is my life. This is my new norm. I'm not going to dwell on it, but I have to make sure I'm doing all of the things correctly because there are a lot of do's and don'ts. And I can't put that in the back of my mind, because if I put that in the back of my mind, I make a mistake and eat something, do something that I'm not supposed to. And I want to be here. So I tell my friends and family all the time, sometimes I'm going to have to miss out on things, and I'm okay with that. You want to know why? Because I still want to be here. My work is not done yet. I'm not putting myself in this situation. So I have a job for two people. That's me and my donor, to make sure that I do the right thing. So that is what's going on with Ebony, life after transplant.
My goodness. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your story, Ebony. Oh my God. I'm telling you, I've been over here just holding back this water in my eyes. But you explained everything so perfectly. I mean, it's so detailed. Like I pray and hope that this message really helps somebody, you know, that's either about to go through it, maybe they're facing it. And I mean, we know many women that, you know, has been in this situation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Bless you, and congratulations again for your 1 year heart anniversary.